I'm John Bowden from Rock History Book, songs that became some of the biggest hits in rock and roll history that almost never made it on an album or were almost never released as a single. We all look back at our lives and going, what if I hadn't done that? Well, there's a lot of that in this video on Rock History Book. It's classic rock songs that were almost never released. Number 15, and The Doors, Light My Fire. It's an interesting choice because when you look at it, it's almost impossible to think of The Doors without their 1967 debut, one of the top albums that year, and a groundbreaking album in classic rock. The Doors were known for their dark psychedelic rock, led by Jim Morrison's hypnotic voice. Light My Fire was largely written by guitarist Robbie Krieger. At first, it was deemed too long and too jam-heavy for radio. Then, a heavily edited version was created, chopping down Ray Manzarek's signature organ solo. That radio edit made The Doors big stars. But the full version, nearly 7 minutes, remains the definitive fan favorite. But at first, for radio-only fans, they simply never knew it existed unless they bought the album. Number 14, and Def Leppard, Pour Some Sugar on Me. During the final stages of recording Hysteria, a huge album for the band, producer Mutt Lange encouraged Joe Elliott, the lead singer, to jam out new ideas. Elliott improved Pour Some Sugar on Me's chorus off the top of his head. It wasn't part of the album's plan. The band rushed to record and add it at the last minute. The decision helped make Hysteria one of the best-selling rock albums ever, a late-game addition that changed everything. Number 13, Bruce Springsteen and Dancing in the Dark. Just when Bruce was ready to release Born in the USA, his manager pushed him to write one more hit. Frustrated, Springsteen wrote Dancing in the Dark overnight, almost as a throwaway. He hated the pressure to be more commercial. Ironically, it became his biggest hit. Powered by that now iconic synth riff, it was an interesting time for Bruce Springsteen. There were a lot of discussions that said Dancing in the Dark was just his example of showing he could be a big pop star, though that was not his jive. Number 12, Guns N' Roses and Sweet Child of Mine. Here's a band that exploded with their raw hard rock on Appetite for Destruction. But Sweet Child of Mine started as a slash-joke guitar exercise. He actually thought the opening riff was kind of corny, but the rest of the band pushed him to develop it into a full song. Axl Rose added lyrics, inspired by his girlfriend at the time. It became the band's only number one single, almost by accident. Number 11, The Who, Baba O'Riley. The band's grand concept album, Who's Next, featured Baba O'Riley, one of their most famous tracks. But Pete Townshend wrote it originally as part of a much larger opera that never materialized. Without that larger project, Baba O'Riley seemed like a leftover, believe it or not. Thankfully, Townshend reworked it as a standalone track. The fusion of synth, rock, and rebellion became timeless, but it was almost discarded as part of an abandoned idea. And of course, it's often called Teenage Wasteland, because some people just don't want to say Baba O'Riley. Number 10, U2, With or Without You. By the mid-80s, U2 was trying to evolve past their early post-punk sound. With or Without You was born from a studio experiment with a prototype effects unit called the Infinite Guitar, but lead singer Bono and guitarist The Edge weren't sure if it really fit their vibe. The band debated scrapping it altogether. Producer Brian Eno encouraged them to keep it. The result was their first number one and career-defining ballad. Number 9, Aerosmith and Dream On. When the band debuted in 1973, Dream On didn't sound like the rest of their blues rock set. Lead singer Steven Tyler's piano-driven power ballad wasn't really radio-friendly at the time. It barely charted upon its release. There was much debate on whether the song really belonged to them, according to some fans. But Dream On got a second chance 2 years later and finally exploded, becoming the song that made Aerosmith household names. A near-forgotten track that became a defining anthem. Number 8, David Bowie, Space Oddity. In 1969, Bowie was still searching for a breakthrough. He wrote Space Oddity, inspired by the moon landing, but his label wasn't interested in a sci-fi ballad. Bowie had to fight to get it released in the UK, and it initially flopped. Only after BBC played it after Apollo 11 coverage did it finally take off. What's now considered Bowie's first major hit was initially seen as too weird and risky. Number 7, Boston and More Than a Feeling. Boston's debut album became one of the best-selling rock records of all time. But More Than a Feeling almost didn't make it out of leader and guitarist Tom Scholz's basement. Scholz recorded much of it on his own, obsessed with its perfection. Labels were skeptical of such a DIY project at the time. Remember, the album was released August 25th, 1976, and the song More Than a Feeling took years of tinkering before it was finally released. Today, it's rock royalty. We remember the soaring guitars and late great Brad Delp's unbelievable vocals. But the song More Than a Feeling came from stubborn persistence rather than their label's confidence. Number 6, Pink Floyd and Wish You Were Here. After arguably their greatest album, Dark Side of the Moon, Pink Floyd faced enormous pressure. Roger Waters' Wish You Were Here was deeply personal, a tribute to former bandmate Syd Barrett, who had to leave the band as he was slowly, it seems, losing his mind. But Waters and lead guitarist and vocalist David Gilmour debated its inclusion. Some felt it was a little too raw and exposed compared to their polished prog rock sound. Thankfully, though, they trusted their instincts. The song became a classic, its emotional honesty striking a chord with millions. Number 5, The Rolling Stones and I Can't Get No Satisfaction. By the mid-60s, the Rolling Stones were looking to cement their rock and roll reputation. Guitarist Keith Richards famously wrote Satisfaction's riff in his sleep, eventually recording it on cassette. But at that time, Richard wasn't really sold on it, thinking it sounded a bit too harsh. But the band's producer convinced them to try it with a fuzz box, making the whole thing history. Without that push, Satisfaction might never have left the demo reel. Number 4, Fleetwood Mac in Dreams. The ever-evolving band was falling apart while recording Rumours, battling breakups and tensions. Stevie Nicks wrote Dreams quickly, but when she presented it, some members weren't impressed. Mick Fleetwood thought it was too simple. But when Lindsey Buckingham, who was famously breaking up with Stevie Nicks during that era, layered his guitar textures, the band saw its potential. It went on to become Fleetwood Mac's only number 1 single, even though it nearly got tossed out. Number 3, Lynyrd Skynyrd and Freebird. Known for their southern rock swagger and triple guitar attack, Lynyrd Skynyrd originally didn't plan to release Freebird as a single. The band thought its 9-minute length was a little too much, and radio programmers agreed, until fans started demanding it. A shortened version was finally cut for radio, but live and full versions, with its soaring guitar solo, became an essential Skynyrd signature. And there you go, Freebird almost stayed on the album as only a deep cut. Number 2, The Beatles and Hey Jude. By 1968, the Beatles could do no wrong. But when Paul McCartney brought in Hey Jude, its length caused alarm. Clocking in at over 7 minutes, EMI executives feared it'd be way too long for radio airplay. Even the band argued about its extended na-na-na extra, but McCartney stood firm, and the gamble paid off. It became the Beatles' biggest US hit and a global sing-along anthem. And this song we've covered a lot on our channel. Number 1, Queen and Bohemian Rhapsody. Queen built their legend on over-the-top glam rock and theatrics. But when Freddie Mercury presented Bohemian Rhapsody to the band, even some insiders thought it was too strange and too long. At nearly 6 minutes with no chorus and operatic sections, their label nearly refused to release it as a single. Radio stations were skeptical as well. It wasn't until DJ Kenny Everett played it as a novelty that momentum quickly built. Today, it's one of the most famous songs in rock history, but it came inches from being shelved. Remember, if you want to support the channel, there's a PayPal link right in the description, because YouTube income can be all over the place. Also, we have a swag store. The description is in the video if you want to buy a t-shirt. Comment on our videos, like them, share them, and of course, subscribe to our channel. I'm John Bowden. This is Rock History Book.